All right, everybody, and welcome back to the Atmos Live studio. Today, we have Julianna Carella in the studio with us today. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks.
All right, just to give you a little bit of background here, Julianna is the embodiment of a successful serial entrepreneur. She is a trailblazer, focused, driven, and always ahead of the competition. Her story is noteworthy in that she's built one of the world's first medical cannabis brands, and since 2008, has created not one, but two multi-million-dollar enterprises. That's pretty notable. All right, so let's start off with a little bit about your early life. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in San Francisco, California, and raised right outside the city in a town called San Mateo.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so when you were born and raised, was there any kind of cannabis culture already in place in the area?
Yeah. Northern California, it's kind of hard to avoid cannabis, actually.
Now, is that up in the, well, I know on the Oregon side of the Emerald Triangle. Is that close to that?
Yeah, well, it's a few hours from there, but definitely closer than like Los Angeles is to the. So yeah, it's sort of 2/3 of the way up the state, basically, the Bay Area.
It's beautiful up there.
Now it's like very close to Silicon Valley. When I was growing up there, Silicon Valley hadn't actually become Silicon Valley yet. So, but that's pretty close to there as well.
It's interesting to see how much that area has changed.
Yeah, it's been a lot of changes.
All right. So before you got into the cannabis industry, what career was in front of you at that point?
Well, I started off as a professional dancer. I moved to New York when I was 19 and pursued that for about 7 years. Then I ended up having a daughter, came back to California, and couldn't really support myself as a dancer anymore. So I became a bookkeeper, went to school for accounting and got some skills under my belt and did some business accounting for probably 10 years before I started Auntie Dolores in 2008.
Okay, so what was the big pivotal moment in 2008 where you decided to start Auntie Dolores?
Well, so there was an economic downturn at that time, and it was really bad in San Francisco. I had previously had many bookkeeping clients, and all of them started to struggle financially. So I was actually losing some of that business because those particular clients were also financially suffering. And I was looking for just an opportunity, something that would help me pay my rent. And, my daughter was approaching college age pretty soon. So there was a lot of pressure to figure something out and fast. And I'm just so blessed that I happened to be where I was at that time, because in 2008, it was really the beginning of this cannabis industry really taking form in California. Even though there had been some laws in place since the early 90s for medical cannabis, the industry itself was really taking off, like in the mid-2000s. So 2008, there was only, I think, 3 other edibles companies. So we started Auntie Dolores with literally a big garbage bag of cannabis shake that was being thrown out by a friend of mine that was cultivating at the time. And I was like, why are you throwing that big bag of weed out? And he's like, because I don't want the weight around here. Because, you can get in trouble for how many pounds of cannabis you have in your possession, regardless of whether it's like super sticky green bud or if it's like trim. So,
and I bet the laws were more strict then than they are now, right?
Well, yeah, and exactly. It's the laws were completely different then. It was all based on this co-op, just a totally different system. So, long story short, I started getting those leftover huge bags of trim, and I would start making the cannabis butter from that. And that's how I started the company. And so, like I said, there was only a few other edibles companies at the time, and they didn't have any unique products that were on the shelves yet. A lot of it was a lot of sugary stuff. So we got into these savory cannabis edibles, and people loved them, and it just took off really quickly. So that's how the first brand got started in San Francisco, 2008, during, really poor economy. By the time it was 2010, I think we had our product in over 300 dispensaries in California. So it really grew fast.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Now, When you said when you started there were 3 other edible companies, were they covering the whole state or just San
Yeah, some of them were. There was 1 or 2 was really focused in Northern California, and then there was 1 or 2 that was down in Southern California. And then, by the time we stopped making THC products 7, 8 years ago, I think there was like over probably 500 edibles companies.
Wow.
And it was really ridiculous how fast it grew.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So can you share some of the challenges and the rewards of being a pioneer in the medical cannabis space, especially because you were one of the first to really launch there?
Yeah. Well, the biggest challenge back then was the lack of regulations. And I think we were all operating as if we were being self-regulated. And that had its challenges. There were some challenges with just an industry that wasn't really mature yet, and that's just the case with any industry. So it's just a little bit disorganized. And, there's a lot of great business people in the industry, but it didn't really have the maturity of the industry that it's starting to have now that we're, many more years in. So that was one of the things that I found difficult. But other than that, there was also a lot of opportunity for growth. That's the one thing about starting out in a really young new industry is all the potential to actually help build that industry from the ground up. And I really like that. So that was the fun part about it, is actually helping to shape the industry. And then we got pretty involved in helping with shaping the legalization and all the regulations around that, and working with all the legislators on that. And didn't really turn out to be all that great in the end, but we tried. We really tried.
Well, I think it's people like you that go to bat like that, in a sense where it's more than just a culture around you. You really embed yourself in that and take it upon yourself to be an advocate for that. Like, that's a whole different level of really being connected within the culture itself. So it's people like you that have gone to bat time and time again and been that advocate and been that speaker and been that forerunner when it comes to hopefully creating better laws and better regulations to hold people accountable for their product,
Yeah.
If it weren't for people like you, we would not have the industry that we do today, and that's a fact.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Kind of wish we could rewind it and do it differently, because when it's all said and done, oh boy, those regulations in California really ended up hurting the industry. So hopefully there's a fine balance there that we can strike, because, the minute you let the regulators in, it kind of changes things.
That's fair.
Yeah.
There's got to be something in place to hold people accountable, but you don't want too many people involved, because we know how that goes.
Exactly.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about how your personal values influenced the core principles of both Anti-Dolores and Treatibles.
Yeah. Well, for us, it's just all about really raising the awareness around cannabis and hemp and all the benefits that it has to offer, because we're dealing with a century-old propaganda campaign that's been very successful at creating a really horrible stigma against cannabis. Mm-hmm. And we still, to this day, deal with that stigma, believe it or not. Even though it's very widely accepted, there's still many people out there that think that there's nothing but bad can come from these plants, and that's just absurd. So we struggle to get the science to be at the forefront so people actually understand what's really going on with this plant and how much it's a part of even our own physiology because of the endocannabinoid system and the phytocannabinoids that come from the plant, and how much that mirrors our physiology. The more you dive into all that science around this plant, the more you realize that we actually need this plant in our system, and so do our pets. So there's still so much more to learn and so much more research to be done. But at this point in time, there's been enough research for us to really confirm that what we knew all along about this plant, that it's actually very good for us and very good for our pets. So there's a lot of passion behind that, and that passion is what fuels what we do every day in business, because it's all about bringing that awareness to the public and constantly combating that stigma that seems to be so deeply ingrained in people.
Now, being that you were born and raised in Cali, you spent time in New York, you've traveled all over, but currently I think you're in Kentucky right now?
No, we're actually in Tennessee.
Nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how in your eyes, and this is off the beaten path, I didn't mean to ask this, but
That's all right.
the cannabis culture in each is vastly different, correct?
Yeah.
Do you think that where we are today in Tennessee and Kentucky, in this little pocket of the country, do you think they have a better shot of setting up shop correctly than some of the places that have had legislation in place for a long time? Like, is it harder to make new laws right or to go back and change stuff that's been there forever?
Well, there's a lot of things I want to say about this question because, historically speaking, I was actually really pro regulations back in the day because I really wanted there to be, basically there's got to be some kind of accountability, as you mentioned earlier, right? At the same time, what I've learned since then is that the regulators that come in and place those regulations on us don't always have the best intentions. So unfortunately, those regulations can do more harm than good in that they can completely strangle a business and make it impossible for them to operate because of some of the regulations that are put in place. They're not really based on reasonable conclusions about everything. So there's a lot of misinformed science that goes behind the shaping of these regulations, and that can be frustrating because there's a lot to know about this plant and how to cultivate it and how to extract the oils from it and do all that safely and everything. But regulators really need to understand all that before they go putting laws in place around it, because some of those laws just don't make any sense at all.
No, they're comical. And you can definitely tell they were made by people who have never enjoyed or even to a point understand cannabis consumption.
Yeah. Like just the whole arbitrary number around what makes a hemp plant different from a cannabis plant, it comes down to 0.3% THC. I mean, that is a completely arbitrary number. And so now there's all these regulations that were written around that number. Right. And now it's becoming more and more difficult. So there's just a lot of misinformation around all that. And it's just sad when the regulations, you've got different states that have different regulations that causes a lot of confusion as well. But just, here in Tennessee, you've got something really interesting happening where you could go to a CBD shop and pretty much get any THC product you want. And you're not going to have this 30% tax on it like you would in a cannabis state. So, I mean, in my mind, I kind of like that option. I don't want to pay 30% tax on a cannabis product. That to me is absurd. So I'd rather be in a place like Tennessee where I can, get the things that I want and need from a shop and pay a reasonable price for it. And it's all good. Now, at the same time, you've got some stores here that put our CBD pet products behind the counter and require ID to purchase them. So that obviously doesn't make any sense either. So I really can't make sense of these laws that they put in place. It's very disjointed, to say the least.
It is indeed. And, speaking on that tax, this was many, many years ago. I was in Colorado, and a friend of mine had always wanted to go into a dispensary. And so we went into a recreational and a medical dispensary. And so they literally had a bank banister in the middle separating the quote-unquote two sides. Yeah. Same bud on either side. Nothing different at all. My gram of Blue Dream cost like $7 with a medical card. Mm-hmm. His gram of Blue Dream on the other side was like $38,
Yeah.
So he went and he bought his 1 little gram, and that was the end of that. But there's got to be some kind of uniformity behind it where it makes it easier for patients, I think, to access at a more reasonable rate.
Yeah, and if you're going to, open up a state for legal cannabis, then you can't put a tax rate on it that's going to deter people from actually purchasing their cannabis in a dispensary when they can go down the street and get it from, Johnny on the block for 1/4 the price. There's not a lot of recognition around human nature when they design these laws. I mean, who's going to pay 30% tax if they don't have to? So it's too bad that the taxes have really destroyed the industry. Yeah. And there's other things that have destroyed it too, but that would be probably one of the bigger ones around cannabis laws where they just didn't really quite think it through.
Well, and that kind of leads into the next thing that we want to talk about is the importance of educating the public about the therapeutic values of cannabis and hemp. Mm-hmm. What do you think? I mean, is that your passion project, you would say? is the educational side.
Absolutely.
So what are the best ways for you to advertise? If people want to find out more, what's their best bet?
Probably social media is a great place to learn about us, and our website. We have a ton of blogs on our website, lots of educational stuff. And if you get on our mailing list, you'll see all the content that we send out, and definitely follow us on social media because there's a lot of great stuff that we put out, and it's a lot of fun too. You know, we've got a lot of fun content as well, but we definitely try to sprinkle all that content with information to just educate people about how these products work and how they don't work.
Mm-hmm. All right. So tell me a little bit about how your role in the homeopathic medicine world played into your formulation of your cannabis and hemp products. Because it seems like you attacked it from a different perspective. Earlier you mentioned the other companies had some stuff, but it was mostly very sugary, not maybe the most healthy way to take it in.
Yeah, homeopathy is kind of a whole specific system of medicine that's very unique, and I did study it for a few years when my daughter was really young. I had hoped to get into that professionally, but it just wasn't a financial decision I could make at the time. Now, fast forward many years later, I definitely brought some of the knowledge that I obtained when I was studying homeopathy to this business, because it goes back to just holistic medicine and choosing holistic medicine over allopathic medicine. And, you know, cannabis is just another modality, just like homeopathy is a modality or acupuncture is a modality. And I like all of them. Cannabis is really just one tool in my personal toolbox of, you know, health regimens. And, you know, it's pretty extraordinary what you can get from cannabis and hemp, you know, depending on if you're looking for, you know, euphoric relaxation, you know, going for THC, or if you just need to deal with some anxiety and you don't necessarily want to be medicated or high. Well, CBD is a great option for that. And I use both, and I interchange them. I combine them. You know, just depending on what's going on in my day or in my evening or what I'm trying to achieve. But the more I find out about these cannabinoids and what they all do, the more I'm finding myself using cannabis products and hemp products, because, I mean, they really are superior for certain things that you can't find other herbal medicines that have that same efficacy. So, and I really love a lot of different herbal medicines, and I still, to this day, as much as I know about all these different herbs, I still always go back to cannabis and hemp. Again, because the actual makeup of the plant is phenomenally beneficial to us. And when you dive into the science, you really get to see like how awesome it actually is.
I totally agree. Because being from Mississippi and then moving to Colorado and getting my license out there and then moving to Oregon and becoming a caregiver and understanding the science behind it more than I did just being a dumb kid trying to get high, you know, let's be honest. It really was amazing. And to the point, I personally don't take pharmaceutical medication. If my head hurts, either a nap or cannabis. And if it doesn't, then I just struggle through it. Same. And I haven't in many years. Well, I also haven't been sick in many, many years. There's something to all that.
Absolutely. Yeah, cannabis doesn't have that suppressive action to it that a lot of allopathic medicines do, you know, and it's going to tune into your natural, you know, physiology, and it only enhances your health, you know? So, I mean, we used to think it was a joke back in the day, this whole medical cannabis thing. Yeah, right. They're just trying to get high. Well, you take the getting high out of the equation, and then you realize, oh, I was actually using cannabis as an antidepressant, and I didn't even know it. It wasn't until I stopped using it that I became depressed, and I was like, I guess it was acting as an antidepressant for me. You know, which, you know, when you're a teenager, and this is why I think when parents get hung up on their teenagers using cannabis, I want to say to them, have you ever wondered, like, your teenager might be actually using cannabis as an antidepressant. Would you rather them do that or actually be on an antidepressant? Because I know myself, I'd rather my kid use cannabis for an antidepressant than to go on, you know, a pharmaceutical option. That's just me.
Well, personally, for me, it took the place of about 8 different medications.
Yep.
And I've never felt better.
There you go. No, it's amazing. And that's what oncologists say too, because like they could give 5 different medicines to their cancer patients, or they could give cannabis to their cancer patient instead of those 5 other medicines. And that cannabis does all those things and then some. So, I mean, I think it's amazing.
Okay, so talking about the medical aspects of cannabis, how and when did treatables, or the option to make edibles for animals too, when did that come into play? And how did that come into play?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that were going on at the time. We were becoming familiar with CBD around 2010 because we had been focused on THC. We really didn't even know about CBD back in 2008, 2009. 2010, I started to hear more about it. I started speaking with some of the cultivators that were growing our cannabis, and I asked them, can we start growing CBD-rich cannabis strains? This is long before hemp became the CBD source, okay? Because once upon a time, we had to extract CBD from cannabis plants. So we started growing CBD-rich cannabis strains and extracting the oil and making human and pet products from that. And when we started giving the pet products to our pets, and I mean like everybody that was on staff at the time that had pets was taking it home, trying it out with their dog or their cat, or in some cases chickens and other animals too. And we were getting these amazing results, and we were like, wow, there might be something to this. Okay, mind you, nobody else was doing this at the time. We didn't
really.
There was no other businesses out there. There was no other brands doing it. We were starting to look around and wondering, is there anybody that's making pet products out of CBD? And it looked like nobody was. So we're like, well, let's just go ahead and start it. And we started making the products in 2012, actually started selling right at the beginning of 2013 to the dispensaries in California that were already carrying the THC human products, the Auntie Dolores products. So we already had a customer that was like super excited to try it. So that's how we got the whole concept of giving CBD to your pets off the ground, because we had, at the time there was over 1,000 dispensaries that were carrying our THC products. They brought in the Treatibles product line, and it just took off again, like wildfire, like the other brand did. And then before you know it, the 2014 Farm Bill passed, and that was really the first time that they opened up legal state-to-state commerce with hemp-derived CBD. So that's when we switched from using cannabis to using hemp for our product, because by using hemp, that basically allowed us to sell our product outside California.
Right.
And then that was another push to basically turn Treatibles into a national brand as opposed to just being confined to California. So there was a lot of things happening on the regulatory side that dictated what we were doing at the time, because to us, it was a lot more exciting to be able to sell our products across the country and maybe even one day outside our country, which we ended up doing. We sell our products in Japan now too. And all of these things became possible because of the Farm Bill that passed in 2014, and then another Farm Bill passed in 2018, which even gave better language to the hemp industry to operate, state by state and so forth. So that's kind of how it all transpired. It was really like, oh, there's this opportunity here. Let's go for it and see what happens. No one else is doing it. We might as well take some arrows in the back. It'll be fun,
Now, in your opinion, is it easier to navigate the regulatory side of the business in the CBD industry, or is it easier to navigate it from just a pure medical perspective? Or is it any different at all?
Yeah, it's definitely different. So the hemp industry and the cannabis industry have different laws that they're actually very different. They should be more alike, but they're totally different, and it just creates more confusion, actually. Mm-hmm. The CBD laws, the hemp CBD laws, in some ways are even more complicated than the cannabis laws. Why? Because the FDA is a little bit more involved, because there's just a lot of products out there that are supplement type products in nature. And the FDA has never given any formal approval to CBD. So we're kind of operating in this little gray zone area, which is totally fine by me, because I don't really need the FDA to approve these products.
Right.
We actually don't want the FDA to approve them, because that would put them into the drug category, and we I mean, at least everybody that I know in the industry that's producing CBD pet products would rather stay in this dosage form category, which is kind of like, your vitamins and supplements that you buy at the store. They're not necessarily regulated by the FDA or approved by the FDA, but the FDA does allow them to exist. So that's kind of like where we stand with CBD products.
That's a very good distinction, actually.
Yeah. And it can get complicated because there's some pretty unreasonable laws, such as you can't have CBD in food products. So we constantly have to prove that our products are not food products. They're actually dosage form products. And so there's just a lot of red tape and a lot of limitations around what you can and cannot do. And it's not all based on reason,
Right. Now, I know on the medical side of things, it really depends on whatever the state itself issues. But on the hemp side of things, is it at least uniformed across our country?
Well, you would think that, right?
I would think that, yeah.
It's supposed to be, right? Because hemp was actually legalized in 2018, completely. So why we're still having all this state by state nonsense it doesn't make any sense, actually. It should be more uniform, but it's not, because you've got these rogue states that take it upon themselves to say, well, we're going to have our own unique law around this, and we're going to decide that, that 0.3% THC, no, we're going to make it a little bit more strict. It can't have any THC at all. And even though to remove THC from those products completely requires more processing, more synthesizing, and more chemicals, actually.
Yeah.
So we're not a fan we're really not a fan of changing the natural makeup of these plants in any way. We want to extract everything that plant has to give, and then not have to do this post-processing just to get it down to a completely zero amount of THC. Having 0.3% THC in the products is actually beneficial to the pets. And it's not enough to get the pet high, and it's certainly not enough to cause static ataxia, which can happen with a pet that consumes too much THC. So again, the laws are made, but they didn't consult with the scientists first. So
are there any states that you do not sell your products in because of their laws?
There's a couple states that we do have some issues with, but we've worked through them. Utah, Virginia, just to name a few. Again, they're just rogue states that try to do their own thing. Alaska. Or it's a situation where, they found a way to create another revenue stream by requirements that they put in place of manufacturers like us. And then you have to register each product with the state, which is like $300 per product or whatever it is. It's always a shakedown of some kind, basically.
At the end of it, it doesn't look like they even care about the science. It's how many ways can I tax you or, bill you for XYZ.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some good things, all right? So, do you have any stories about how your products have changed the life of any consumers and or pets?
Oh, yeah. We got hundreds of them. We have amazing reviews for our products, but there's always a few that stand out. I'll just give you one of the first reviews that we ever got. It was like a testimonial where a family had this little chihuahua that had a lot of anxiety, was running around in circles, chasing his tail all day long. And they just thought it was part of the dog's personality. Oh, he must do that. He's always done it. We never knew any different. They started giving the dog treatables, and he stopped doing that. And they were like, wait,
something's different.
What's happened? Oh, that wasn't normal behavior after all. No, it's not normal. If you have a dog at home that chases their tail all day, try treatables, I promise. Your dog will stop doing that. So that's one of the first testimonials that we got, probably 8 or 9 years ago. There's been so many. We even gave our product to a bear up in Oregon at a wildlife safari. The bear came out of hibernation and couldn't walk because his hind legs were really arthritic. So the handler at the safari gave the bear our product, and he started running around like a bear cub and was on our product for a few years until he passed eventually. But, the safari said that they thought our product definitely helped lengthen this bear's life because he was literally at, death's door before he started using treatables.
Well, you heard it here first. Treatables are rated for bears, apparently. That's wild, actually.
Yeah, all
Well, it's
animals.
good
Yeah.
that you're able to enhance the quality of life for whatever time you had left.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about with these pets. You know, they have so many ailments and stuff. Senior pets, it's almost like CBD is perfect for them because, you know, you got anxiety, they get anxious when they get older, they get more arthritic. You know, sometimes they develop hip dysplasia or even epilepsy. I mean, there's so many things that the CBD can help with, and the senior pets are really like some of our best customers, really.
I'm really surprised that more companies haven't looked into the science behind it. But, you know, it is what it is, I suppose.
Yeah, there's so much to it, and it's hard to know every little detail. And there's the nice thing about the 2018 Farm Bill is once that passed, all of a sudden there's a lot more research into, you know, CBD pet care, and so now we have a lot more research that we can refer to and share with people that we didn't have before. Because again, you can't research anything if it's illegal, right? That's part of why we don't know as much as we could about THC, because it's been a Schedule I narcotic, and if it's, you know, it's got that status, you can't research it. So hopefully one day they'll take it off that list. It shouldn't be on there. It never should have been on there. And, you know, maybe one day we'll know all there is to know about cannabis if these restrictions would ever go away.
Well, speaking of challenges like this, so you've taken your brand internationally. Mm-hmm. What's different over in Japan or wherever else you may have it as opposed to here?
Yeah, good question. So Japan is about 5 or 6 years behind the U.S. as far as regulations and just their industry. When we got into Japan, it was because one of the big distributors there came to trade shows here in the States and actually brought quite a few brands back and then researched them and then decided on Treatibles. So we were really flattered that we got through that process. It was very stringent. It took 18 months to get our products approved for Japan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that like their testing phase?
Yeah, they literally have to like research products before they can bring them in.
Wow.
So you have to go through this whole approval process with the government. And they're also really strict about THC. So we have to send them our broad spectrum products that have no THC at all, not even the teeniest, tiniest amount. So they're very strict, and, you know, it's a lot of red tape, but it's a great market. You know, the Japanese customer is a really sophisticated customer, and they're very particular about what they like. One little thing turns them off, they won't buy the product again. So the bar is set really high in Japan, and we're pretty proud that our products are there, because now when other international customers come to us and want to work with us, we're like, well, we can do that because we got into Japan. So
Right. Well, it really sounds, there's a couple good things about it being over there. One, the science behind their 1.5 year long, you know, investigation on what the product is and what kind of uses it has and all this kind of stuff. That, one, speaks for the quality of your product, and two, it's good because now that science can come into play in other situations. Like you can take that and put it in front of whatever seated panel you want, you know, and someone has done it. And then also I think it speaks to the quality because, like you said, being that they are on another level of sophistication, your product is out there, and it's apparently doing well enough to stay out there. So I think that speaks for what it is.
yeah, it's been really exciting. There's actually white papers and all kinds of research there's been more research on our product in Japan than even here in the States, because that's just how they work. You know, they want to research it before they carry it. And over here in the U.S., they restricted a lot of research for so long because of the, you know, legal status of hemp. So it's almost like they don't want us to really know all there is to know.
Right. Now, who over here anyways is in charge of conducting and compiling that research?
You know, it would be independent, but there's been a lot of universities that have done research. Again, since 2018, it's almost like the floodgates were opened. And so there's been a lot of great research, but mostly at universities and just private groups that, you know, got funding and decided to look at something specific, like, you know, whatever it might be. But something that happened last year that was really exciting, because we're involved with the National Animal Supplement Council, which is basically like a trade association that works with the regulators and all the manufacturers, kind of like a liaison. And they because we're part of the NASC, we have to report to them every month if we've had any adverse events with our product, meaning
Right.
a customer had a problem or whatever. And we don't have a lot of those, but when we do, it'll be something minor, like a dog ate too many treats and so he vomited or something like that. But we've never actually had a true adverse event. And what we found out after they concluded the study, they had taken all of the data of all of their manufacturer members and all the different CBD administrations that had been given to pets. And there was over like 14 million different products that had been given out. And of those 14 million administrations of CBD products, there was like less than 25 adverse events or something. It was ridiculously low.
That's wild.
And that was a true, research project. It wasn't like some rinky. I mean, they took a lot of data and really looked at it, and they were stunned to find that the adverse event level was as low as it was. And, actually the scientist that did most of the research on CBD, who's unfortunately no longer living, Raphael Meshulam, he's an Israeli scientist who knew more about cannabis than probably anybody in the whole world. Mm-hmm. He said that CBD was the safest chemical he's ever researched in his whole life. So we just always go back to that. It's incredibly safe. And, you can't even overdose a pet on this stuff. It's impossible, literally, to overdose a pet. The worst thing that's going to happen is they might get, they might vomit, or if they eat too much, or they're going to have a really good nap. That's
a good problem to have.
Yeah, good problem to have. They might, urinate because they lose control of their bladder. But other than that, there's never been a major adverse event that killed a pet or made them deathly ill or anything like that. So that's pretty cool.
Statistically speaking, that's really good compared to all the other drugs on the market. Well, any drug or most other supplements on the market. Let's say that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about how do you research and develop in your process, where do you do all your research for your new products? Is it in-house? Are there certain labs that you outsource to? How does that work?
With research and development, we look at what is not in the market, what would be a unique product to bring to the market that no one else is doing. And then we try to fill out our menu of products so that there's a really diverse offering too. So there's a lot of different potency products. Some have a lower CBD potency, some have a higher potency, but we use a lot of different flavors and textures because we want the products to appeal to pets. Many of these pets need these products every 3-4 hours. So last thing we want to do is be struggling with our pet to take a product that they don't like the taste of or they don't like the texture. And animals can be pretty picky when it comes to that stuff, especially cats. So the research and development product is almost, I want to say like 80 or 90% focused on flavor and texture because that's where you're going to get the pet to actually consume the product, right?
That makes sense.
But as for flavors and masking the flavor of the hemp oil or, other elements, we might want to add other active ingredients that also enhance the CBD or whatever that might be. Every product has its own unique offering, really. So that's the approach we take with research and development of new products.
Now, what was the most recent product to hit the market for you guys?
We just redeveloped our transdermal cream. We've got a new cream. It's 1,000 milligrams, comes in a small tube, really potent. The nice thing about the cream is you can actually put it on your pet's ear because your pet actually has endocannabinoid receptors in their ear and the tips of their ear. So you can put the CBD cream on there and it will act just like the ingestible products do. So you could use it for calming. You could use it for joint care. You could also use it directly on skin conditions. Your pets might have hot spots or rashes, any of that stuff. Even the joint inflammation, it could be rubbed directly on the joint for that type of benefit and relief. So again, there's just so many things you can do to help your pets with these products.
I feel like I need a tube. I need to go ahead and get in the ordering system. I have a pit bull who loves to lick any and everything that I'm not telling her not to because she's so anxious I'm not touching her. She's my big baby.
Oh, I'll definitely send you some stuff for your girl. I didn't realize you had pets. I should have asked you before I got here.
It's all good. We'll get something down the road.
Yep.
All right. So, how do you think your approach to business has evolved from when you started till now?
Well, when I started this business, I was working, 16 to 18 hours a day and not getting a lot of sleep. Now I actually get sleep, and my life is not as stressful as it used to be. I don't have to drive around with 500 pounds of weed in the trunk of my car anymore. So that's a big step up. We outsource everything. So my job really consists of me sitting at a computer all day, which is really different from what it used to be 10 years ago, where I was slinging and banging in the kitchen with an apron and gloves and, sweating and all this kind of stuff. That's in the past now. We've actually got manufacturers that make these products for us. So I can operate my company from my computer, which is pretty awesome.
That's a crazy change in daily routine, from doing it all, doing the marketing, the advertisement, the sales, the production, distribution.
Yeah.
So now you're just arranging everything. I mean,
yeah, because we've got a fulfillment center. We used to do all our own shipments. We've got contract manufacturers. We used to manufacture everything ourselves. We've got distributors. We used to get out on the road and go and deliver all these products, but now we hire other people to do that for us, and we were able to scale up the business because of that. When we went from producing our own products in a commercial kitchen to hiring a contract manufacturer, they were able to increase our production by tenfold.
Wow. Just
by having the equipment to produce that much product.
Right.
So that's how we were able to grow the business, essentially. And, a contract manufacturer, they've got this incredible equipment that produces a better product that we could never produce in a commercial kitchen. So It's been a big improvement on all fronts to work with, these outside producers and stuff.
Now, how long was it before you really saw the need to do that? Because I know at some point you woke up one day and you were like, I can't do this anymore. We've got to scale up.
We actually wanted to do it a lot sooner than we were able to do it, because there was still a lot of companies that wouldn't touch a cannabis product or a hemp product. In fact, it took a lot of educating of these contract manufacturers, because we were the first CBD pet product out there, and then we were the first one to actually work with contract manufacturers. So we had to educate them and reassure them that they could produce our product and then go produce another company's product on the same equipment, and there wasn't going to be any cross-contamination. Now, if we had been making a THC product, that might have been a different situation, because believe it or not, these cannabinoids have a tendency to stick to everything. So you could essentially make a, pan of brownies, of pot brownies, and clean that pan real good, and then put something else on there next week, and it's going to pick up some of that THC that was left behind. So, a lot of manufacturers wouldn't go there with a THC product because it's too risky. But a CBD product's a different story.
Well, a funny little snippet. I should probably leave this out, but I'm not going to. So, anyways, back in the day, I found myself having to take some drug tests. And so, speaking of THC sticking to things, I was not consuming any cannabis, and I failed every drug test for 6 months, 7 months.
Wow.
The first couple of months, they weren't testing my levels just to see if I had it in me. And they were convinced that I was still using cannabis until they took it a step further, sent it to a lab. They're like, no, his levels were just very, very high. But he's not consuming anymore.
So it could have been from a year or two before or something? Or?
Yeah. The struggle.
Yeah.
All right. So in what ways do you think the cannabis and or hemp industries can improve to better serve consumers and their pets?
I might have kind of already touched on that just in the subtext of some of the things I've said already. Just take the regulators out of the situation altogether. We'd be better off. No, just kidding. We do need regulators. I'm not going to say we don't want them at all. I just wish they were more informed and educated on everything before the laws are written. And I wish that there was less emphasis on the taxing of it all, because the taxing of it is actually what deters a lot of business. So I think there could be more reasonable regulations and also more reasonable taxation. that
feel
would
like
be an improvement.
The taxation side is really kind of a growing cancer on the industry itself.
Yeah, kind of all around. It's too bad. So that's, in my opinion, that's the biggest issue. But there's another issue I haven't mentioned yet, which is the fact that you've got legal farms across the U.S., which is great. It's awesome that they legalize hemp for U.S. farmers. What's not awesome is that we're still importing CBD hemp from China. Okay.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and it's a huge amount as well. And unfortunately, the hemp that's grown in China is contaminated with heavy metals because the soil in China is contaminated with heavy metals, and hemp is a bioaccumulator, so it's going to pull everything out of the soil that you planted in. And that's a problem. I'm also not a fan of giving China business anyway. We should be focusing on our U.S. farmers and strengthening that instead of strengthening, these outside producers.
Completely agree.
That's a big problem I see, and that's where I feel like the regulatory side of things is very disjointed because they're so focused on regulating these U.S. farmers and producers, and then they don't even regulate the product that's coming in from China.
Which is wild to me that that's not on the same standard.
Well, yeah, because here in the States, if we were to produce hemp that had all that heavy metal in it, it would show up on the testing because we're required to test. Well, how come they're not required to test the hemp that comes from China?
You would think there would be more tests on something coming from outside of this country.
It's kind of like force vaccinating the whole U.S. population and then letting a bunch of illegal immigrants in and not requiring vaccination. That's just
it's counterintuitive
comparison
to what we are trying to do over here, really.
Yeah.
Such a shame.
It's just a lot of double standards.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, so how do you balance the demands of running two successful businesses with your personal life and interests such as dancing?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I'm not a dancer anymore, but I do spend a lot of time skating. So I try to carve out enough time to skate. And, business it's a little bit slow right now just because the economy is so slow. We're in another economic downturn right now, unfortunately. So, but we're still busy all the time. I mean, I still have an 8-hour day. I don't work, 15, 16, 17 hours a day anymore. So that's a huge improvement. And because both brands are, we're producing hemp CBD products now exclusively. We're not doing the THC products anymore. So there's a lot of there's manufacturers that work for both brands. So when we produce products for Treatibles, we also produce those same products for Auntie Dolores through the same manufacturing partners. So they're pretty easy to operate alongside each other. So there's, and that's the fun part is, our slogan is harmony for the whole family because we love helping humans and their pets achieving that like the best health they can have.
That's very, very pure in motive.
Thank you.
All right, so tell me what future innovations or developments in the cannabis and hemp industries are you most excited about?
Mostly excited about more international business. We're getting a lot of interest from other countries and just going through the process with a few other countries right now for approval. So that's really exciting. We're in a lot of pet stores throughout the U.S. already. And, there's, like I said, it's been a little bit slow because the retail brick and mortar business seems to be kind of deteriorating, which is pretty sad. And then we try to make up that business on e-commerce sales, but we're still restricted from selling our product everywhere. We can't sell CBD products on Amazon and Chewy.com and these other websites. So kind of creates a little bit of an impact in terms of opportunities, which is frustrating. There really shouldn't be any restrictions to selling CBD products anywhere, but there still is. And, that affects our business to a certain extent.
I didn't realize they had the restrictions on the e-commerce side of that.
Yeah.
So can you sell it anywhere, or is it just not those major platforms like that?
there's a lot of restrictions. I mean, we sell directly from our website, and there's a couple other websites like Wholesale Pet and some other ones. And then a lot of our retail customers have their own websites that they sell our product. But the big ones like Amazon and Chewy.com are still strictly disallowing any CBD products.
Wow.
And we're not interested in breaking the law and changing our labels and doing all this stuff that we see all these other companies doing just to get their products on there. But not being able to sell in those channels is really unfortunate, and it's very unfair.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's very unfortunate, especially for the smaller companies that are trying to get their name and brand out there.
Yeah.
They had the ability to place or post in the most prevalent marketplace.
Yep.
Who knows what will happen?
Yeah.
All right. So, can you share any plans for new products or expansions within either company?
Just this year, we're probably not going to release a lot of new products since we just released some in the last part of last year. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you release too many new products, it's really hard to get them to market and getting your customers on board with them. Sometimes it takes like 1 or 2 years for people to catch on to this stuff. So we're not real focused on new products this year as much as we are at new opportunities and, new social media channels and new PR opportunities and that kind of thing. And then again, the international market.
Do you do most of your marketing and advertisement via social media?
Yeah, probably most of it. We're going to be doing more PR. We just hired a new PR firm, so there's going to be more, print and different articles about our products and whatnot. But yeah, we've been really focused on social media. Mm-hmm.
Now, I did find your IMDb. Do you want to tell folks about some of the things you've acted on or that you've been on camera, been able to speak about this kind of stuff before?
Different documentaries and stuff.
How did those opportunities come about?
Yeah, so there's been a few documentaries that we've been featured in, and definitely, I think it was heavier when we were in California still and involved in cannabis. But yeah, we've had a lot of great exposure and just opportunities to share our story. And then I think just being a woman owner, a lot of people try to develop stories around that, which is like, I totally appreciate that. But, the industry is still pretty much dominated by men. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a real a great opportunity for women necessarily. It's a great opportunity for anybody who's got the drive to do the things you got to do to stay afloat in this type of industry.
It's cutthroat out there for sure.
It is. You got to have some backbone. Let's just say that.
All right. So I only have a couple more questions here. One of which is, how do you ensure that your products meet the diverse needs of diet-restricted consumers?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are pretty focused on highlighting the CBD and other cannabinoids. Those are the main ingredients and the main active ingredients. We don't add a lot of other active ingredients that might drive up the price of the product. And, CBD does such a great job of all those things anyway. But that's really our focus when it comes to the development of these products. I don't know if
In your opinion, how has the introduction of CBD products for pets influenced the pet care industry?
Oh, that's a great question. Because CBD, there's a few unique features to it when it comes to pet care that are so unique that people realize they're not going to be able to bring relief to their pet with any other type of product. For example, for anxiety, there's not a lot of choices out there for pets. Mm-hmm. And so CBD ends up being like literally the best thing that there is out there. And not only is it the best because it does the best job, but there's not much else to choose from. Now, if you take arthritis, which is another thing that people are using our products for their pets, there are other arthritis medicines out there, and sometimes people would rather just go take their dog or the cat to the vet and get that quick, easy prescription without thinking about, maybe the long-term effects of having your pet on a product like that. But there are no long-term bad effects of keeping your pet on a CBD product. You could give your pet CBD every day for the term of their life, and they will only live longer and healthier. They're not going to, life expectancy isn't going to shorten. It's only going to lengthen. So, there's a lot of incentive to use these products over pharmaceutical meds. When it comes to epilepsy, there's literally nothing better than CBD. That's why they made Epidiolex for kids with epilepsy, because it's literally like the best thing you can give to address seizures. And the reason for that is because CBD has this incredible affinity to the nervous system. So anything that affects your pet's nervous system, such as anxiety or seizures or anything else, really, they're going to see relief with the CBD products.
I really want to take the time to appreciate people like you who have pushed as hard as you have to uncover more science behind all of this. Because, think about 20, 30, 40 years ago, none of this was available.
Yeah.
It was the same old story with everybody. You either do X, Y, Z, or you do nothing at all. And now we have not only more jobs and all this new opportunity for people, but there's more science behind things that help not only people, but animals as well.
Absolutely.
And it wouldn't be possible unless it was for the use of the industry.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the mission. That's the main mission behind everything we do, is just bring the truth to the people. Because we saw all the baloney they were feeding us, and like I said earlier, this propaganda campaign has gone on for over 100 years, and it's been, there's a lot of propaganda out there. Mm-hmm. Government sanctioned propaganda. I'd say that the cannabis propaganda is some of the strongest and most successful propaganda we've ever been subjected to, because it's gone on as long as it has, and there was a lot of laws built around it to support the big fat pile of lies that they've been trying to feed us. So now that pile of lies is crumbling down, people are starting to see, wow, I really, really could see myself benefiting from this. Look what it did for Fido. We've got a lot of humans that started using our human CBD products because they saw their pet getting relief from treatables. And a lot of these folks are people that would have never in a million years tried a CBD product because it came from the cannabis plant.
Big, mean weed plant, so.
But then they see their pet doesn't get high off it, but only gets better. And they're like, man, maybe I should try this for my back pain or for my anxiety or for my own seizures or whatever that is. And then they're like, man, I could have been doing this all my life. I really missed out.
Mm-hmm. All right. So in closing, what, in your opinion, has been the most rewarding aspect of your time in the cannabis culture?
Helping people and pets feel better, like literally helping them feel the best they possibly can is a huge... It kind of doesn't matter how many challenges we have thrown at us, because the reward is incredible, Mm-hmm. Especially when I could literally wake up every day and just pull up our website and start reading reviews, and I'll start crying because I'm like, oh my God, it's so awesome. So yeah, that's my day.
Well, it's really cool that is your passion, being able to help.
Absolutely. It's a blessing to be able to do it and to be able to have a career and, be able to support myself doing something that I really love. It's been incredible, and I'm super thankful to God for giving me that opportunity and for giving us this plant, because it's just, it's amazing.
It's changed my life. It sounds like it's changed your life, and it sounds like through you, a lot of other people have had their lives changed as well.
I hope so.
All right. So in closing, is there any information you want to give us? Like what's the best way to contact you in regarding a new customer? Where can people find out more information about you or to contact you, anything like that?
Absolutely. So check us out on all the social media channels. Just look up Treatibles. I'm going to spell Treatibles. It's Treatibles. So it's, purposefully spelled incorrect.
We'll put it on the screen for people.
Yeah. And definitely go to our website. If you're a wholesale customer interested, we do have a wholesale portal. You can sign up there and get information. If you're an e-commerce customer, I would really suggest joining our email list. Like I said, we give out a lot of great information. It's not too obnoxious. We don't send emails every single day or anything like that, but we do a lot of sales for our e-commerce customers. So it's a great opportunity to, come back to the website and get our great products at a good price. So that's probably the best way to reach us. happy to have you come introduce yourself. You're welcome to email me directly. You can find my email. It's Julianna@Treatibles.com. And I'd be happy to hear from anybody who'd like to reach out.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and I look forward to seeing what is in store for Treatables in the future.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. All right, everybody, and welcome back to the Atmos Live studio. Today, we have Julianna Carella in the studio with us today. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks.
All right, just to give you a little bit of background here, Julianna is the embodiment of a successful serial entrepreneur. She is a trailblazer, focused, driven, and always ahead of the competition. Her story is noteworthy in that she's built one of the world's first medical cannabis brands, and since 2008 has created not one, but two multi-million-dollar enterprises. That's pretty notable. All right, so let's start off with a little bit about your early life. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in San Francisco, California, and raised right outside the city in a town called San Mateo.
Nice.
Yep.